Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of the LaunchDay Shorts podcast. I'm your host, Dean Cvetkoski, a.k.a. WhoDean. Today in studio, we have the man, the myth, the legend, Jesse Bloch here in studio. Jesse, how you going?
Good, mate. How are you, Dean? Thanks for having me.
You're very welcome, mate. I'm doing all right. I'm doing pretty well. It's been a very long day, back-to-back interviews, but nonetheless, thriving. I think thriving is a great word, right?
Mate, thriving, surviving, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, man. Absolutely. Absolutely. No, that's awesome stuff. So look, Jesse, why don't you take a few people that maybe would be new to who you are and what you do? Look, do you want to give them a rundown? What is it exactly you do? And because obviously for us, it's very business focused, right? So a lot of the people we interview are in business, but not a lot of people realize that music is a form of business as well. True?
Very true. It's funny you say that. So yeah, I am a music producer and a DJ, and a lot of people will just assume, oh, so you just kind of make music, you DJ, you push buttons and stuff, but there is a music business and there's a music industry, and it's a lot of different knobs and turns and lot of moving parts that a lot of people don't realize. Yeah.
And you know what? It's not like a lot of people think, oh, yeah, being a DJ is easy. You just press play, And the thing is, though, is that I used to DJ, and, there's one thing that not even I've learned, and that's with 6, 7, 8 years of, experience actually behind the decks, was that, I still don't know how to scratch properly. You got some people that are some real scratch masters. They really know how to do the wax on, the wax off, right? And that still was a very big struggle for me. And it's not easy to learn that. Do you know what I mean?
It's funny, that isn't necessary. It's fun. If you're good at it, that's really cool. I know James Hype does a lot of scratching, and he is quite well known for a lot of his DJ tricks and stuff like that. But funnily enough, the reason why I started DJing before I started making music when I was a kid at school. And there was someone at school who he bought the nicest decks and all the nice things, and I think that made me a bit jealous, to be honest. He was like the kind of driving factor for me to start DJing, because I was like, oh, if he can do that with all this expensive stuff, I bet I can buy a cheap one and just start DJing. I always loved music, and it was something that I wanted to do, but that definitely helped prompt me. But kind of the comparison I'm trying to make is, you don't have to know all the fancy tricks. You don't have to do all the crazy things. It's very simple. You have to just be able to, one, do what you love, read the crowd, be able to relate to other people. Music is not about one person. It's about so many people. You connect with people. When you go to a nightclub or a festival, the music that you hear is, you're in the crowd next to someone next to you, and they know the words, you know the words, you're connecting. It's about everyone. So being in that humble mindset and just being that kind of person naturally is kind of the way that's going to help you stick through the music industry, because it's tough and there's a lot of noise and a lot of competition and a lot of weirdness, I guess. But to kind of be able to stick it out, you have to just be yourself. You really just do have to be yourself and understand that it's not just about you. It's about the core of what makes music, and that's emotion. So you got to connect into your emotion, other people's emotion, and yeah.
I get you, man. I get you. And that's, what it is. Even so, from DJing, from music production, it is a very much so of not what you know, but who you know, and that's an important one. So the friendships that you cultivate, the people that you support, I think that was probably one of the biggest things. A lot of, DJs that I knew that were trying to get out there, they just expected that because they DJed in their bedroom and they had a really good mixtape, that people would hire them to jump on, right, and play at their clubs or play at their events. And it's far from the case, right? It's more about fostering and cultivating those relationships. Am I wrong?
It works very differently for a lot of people. For me personally, I always enjoyed connecting with people. I loved having a chat with someone. I was always me. Like I would always, a random person could bump into me in Coles and I'll be like, hey man, how you going? Like just overly friendly. So I think in that retrospect, that kind of helped me in terms of building relationships with people. But you're definitely right. It is about relationships. But it's also humbling yourself within those relationships. So, for example, I started out producing music. I went to a college in Sydney called SAE Institute to learn how to make music, to use Ableton. And I would ask the lecturer, I would show him a song and I'd say, how do you make this? And he would show me how to make it. And then I would kind of make my own sounds, upload it to SoundCloud, get no likes at all, and wonder, why am I not getting any likes? And then there was like a page at the time called Melbourne Machine or Melbourne Maniac. Anyway, they asked for $20 per repost. So I would pay them $20 for repost, and I did it a few times, and then the songs kind of started kicking off from that moment. But I think just accepting that, like, it's okay to like get a bit of help from somewhere, and that's an important thing I think I took from that. Whereas just thinking, you're right, with the music industry, people they're a bit like, oh, it's kind of my way or the highway. Do you know what I mean? And my music's cool, and if it's not going to be listened to, then who cares? I was never like that. I was always very just like, how can I get people to hear this? I think it's good, so like maybe other people will as well. And I just had to pay like a couple bucks to get my stuff reposted. But I think, looking back, I can see what was the driving factor behind that. But I think just at the time, that was just me as a person. But I see what you're talking about, and it is a very frustrating part of the music industry. There's just a lot of people who they just want to just kind of cut corners and get to the top and not do it in the most ethical way.
Yeah. And what do you mean by ethical? Explain that one. What do you mean by not the most ethical way?
I think people will hide themselves. They will hide who they are to try and succeed or get to the top. And, that might be, I've had experiences where I've met some DJs and they've been really nice to me one-on-one, and then we go out into a club setting and I find, well, why are they not being so friendly? They acting like they don't really know me. And this is when I was more like first starting off, or, they'll comment on I remember back in the day when Facebook statuses were a thing, I copped a lot of bullying. A lot of bullying. People would comment on my Facebook statuses and say, your music sucks, your music's shit, all that stuff. And then when I saw them in person, it was like, hey man, how you going? And I was just like, is it banter, or is it just these people, they're trying to look cool online so they can somehow form connections like that? Do you know what I mean? So
I get you. They're putting on a persona to appease to certain individuals. You know what I mean? And then really behind the scenes, they're actual assholes, really. I get what you're saying.
Persona is important though. Like when you want to be an artist, like you look at all these amazing artists and they have these personas online and on stage, and that's probably not who they are. Like as when they're just probably a brother or father or mother or sister. But there's just a way to go about it, and I think back to what I said, you just have to be yourself. And if you're trying not to be yourself, it will catch up to you eventually. Like I think there have been times where I probably could have had more of a persona and that could have helped me a lot more. But I honestly would prefer to just succeed in a way that's slow and steady, because I know I'm just being myself the whole time, than have to kind of go home and be like, I'm not being myself, and not feel good about it. Do you know what I mean? So
I get what you mean, dude. And it's like, I suppose in some ways, because I know I get this a lot too, because the person that you see behind the microphone, up on stage, that kind of a thing, is a very different person to how I am at home. And it's not necessarily like, it's like a fake personality, but it is just more like that's who I am on stage. and that is my persona, and that's how I go and present to the world. But there's this level of imposter syndrome that comes with that too. And it's this sense of not being fully aligned. And I have been, like, for me personally, I've spent a bit of time, I suppose, realigning myself to, be more of that person that I am at home, online, and in front of the camera as well. And like one of those examples is, me and my daughters. So I spend a lot of time with my daughters. God bless them. They're gorgeous. And I thought, you know what? Why don't I start bringing them into the equation and start doing more content that involves them? And a little glitch there. It's okay. We'll fix it in post. But what is it that I can do? I'll give you an example, right? So I've brought out like a YouTube series called Tiny Tycoons, and Tiny Tycoons is focused on my daughters and them selling. The thing is that before I started video recording that, I was already taking them out and teaching them entrepreneurship and teaching them how to sell. And we had these, I got one here actually. There's a Google review card, right? I'm just taking them out to cafes and restaurants and selling them Google review cards. And I started incorporating more of that content. And I feel that's a little bit more of the genuine me that now I'm bringing into that persona. So I get what you're saying, when it comes to just being that real you and the genuine you. So I love that, man. It's really good.
Yeah, I think like you don't get me wrong, like you need to put on a bit of a personality. Like if you're going to get in front of the camera, you want to be engaging and you want to get people to listen to you. And there's ways to do that, and there's little tricks, and that's totally fine. I more mean keep it on the camera. Do you know what I mean? Don't make that part of your personality and you think you're some sort of like big deal, because I've learned, and I'm sure you've learned as well, like we're all humans. We don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. Something can happen tomorrow that changes the whole game. So like, what makes anyone more special than the next person? Nothing.
Absolutely, man.
So
Absolutely.
just do it. Do what you need to do. Your work. You're the most important person. When you're working, when you're on the computer, following your passions, you are the most important person. But when you are out in the world, other people are their most important person. So treat everyone with respect, you know what I mean? With respect and in a humble way. Yeah.
That's right. And that's, like, I'll be honest, like in my time when I was 16, 17, I had the opportunity to interview people like Ryan Reynolds and Michael Winslow for a radio program. And, like a bunch of others as well. There's a whole long list of them, right? But just as an example. And I think that was one of the main things for me where even when I was emceeing events, didn't matter where it was, but you'd be backstage and there was a bunch of guys that were notably more popular than others, and you sort of treat them. That was a thing. I never like, oh, can I get an autograph or anything like that? So there's that one part where you seem like a massive fan and just another person, and then you had other people that were like stage manners. Were like, oh, I don't care, you're not doing this, don't. And they just absolutely go ballistic. And sometimes you're just being nice, have some kindness and be genuine. Sometimes make the biggest difference. I like that, man. I love that. That's cool. I really do. I really do. Well, listen, man. Look, you've got you're producing music. You're DJing. What's your sort of upcoming gigs? Your latest thing that's going? Any upcoming track releases? What's happening there?
Yeah. So going to the UK next week.
Wow.
For 5 weeks. Have a few shows in Scotland, one in Northern Ireland, and there's still a few in the works. I can't say too much in regards to releases, but I'm working very closely with Universal Music.
Nice.
In Germany and with France. And we're doing a remake of an old French song, and we're doing a remake of an old 80s song.
Nice.
And that's that's in the works at the moment. So probably within the next month will be the next release. So really, really excited to go back to the UK. I haven't been there in a few years, and I just can't wait. I love the energy there. I think it's the club scene there is crazy. Europe, UK is just a different world to Australia. And I'm excited. Like I still find it so like imposter syndrome-y, like that there's people that want to come and watch me DJ. So
And not just in Australia, but globally. That's does it? You said you got an imposter syndrome side of it. Like, how do you deal with that?
you know what I used to? I'm 28 now, so I've had to learn a lot, and you never really deal with it. But I think just the way I think about it is everyone has like something amazing about them. Like if you hurt yourself, for example, and you have to go to the hospital, like there are nurses and doctors that are like treating you, and you're like there, like I am like the most useless person right now. These people are amazing. So like that's them like focusing so much on saving lives, and that's their everyday 24/7. And this is my everyday 24/7. It's more global and it's more eyes on. And
Mm.
I think when people talk about things like this in a normal setting, they kind of find it quite interesting, and they're like, oh my God, it's so boring what I do. What you do is so interesting. Like, and I understand, like, it definitely would seem like that. But then I find that as soon as you ask someone else, like, how they're going, they go on, they jabber on about themselves, and the conversation fully changes. So I think just, I think it's easy, maybe as a creative person, I've heard this from other people, just being prone to overthinking and allowing that initial questioning to be like, oh my God, like why is this person asking so much about me? But it's actually not that deep. Like, yes, it's amazing. And if you played in front of a massive crowd with hundreds of thousands of people, insane. If you got a hit number one song, unbelievable.
Hey, yes, you. I'm talking to you, and I know it looks like the interview, but it's actually not. We're taking a really quick, short break so that way you can hear me out. I really want you to hear me out here. If you are a business owner, you are building your personal brand. I mean, you could be anyone. You could be a real estate agent, you could be an astronaut, an IT professional. It really doesn't matter who you are and where you fit into the world. This interview is great for you. If you're really struggling to make content, and let's face it, right? When we get our phones out and we're like, taking selfies and doing videos that way, it just comes across as inauthentic. And the other side of that as well is the fact that it's just so hard to come up with ideas of what kind of content to create. And this is where our interviews absolutely bring a powerhouse and an arsenal of, basically a war chest in terms of your organic content marketing that you're creating. We create the TikToks and Reels for you. Here's the thing. I've got some great news. The great news is that this interview is completely free. We boost your SEO on Google because we go and feature these videos like the one you're watching on YouTube. And not only that, but we also give you free content to post to TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, and all the rest of it as well. So if you haven't already, in the description down below is a link to Linktree, where you'll see the opportunity for you to book your very own interview and get free content for your personal brand or your business as well. I'll see you on the other side of the screen.
But that's just something to be proud of. It's not something to be like ashamed of, like, because someone else at this second is doing something amazing too, and it's not music related. Like it's something else. There's people inventing things, and it's just, you just gotta own it. And I know it's easier. It's easy the way I'm saying it, but it's taken time
Easier
to
said than done,
develop
brother.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's taken time to develop like that hard skin, I guess. But that's just how I think of it, like, and there's good days and there's bad days, like, and that's just life. And I think we're only here once, so like, just who cares? Like, especially the older I get, I just don't care as much.
You're the same age as me, man. What do you mean the older you get? It was still in our 20s, man.
Well, I guess when I started this, I feel older because when I started this, I was about 18 years old. So it's been a lot of intense experiences and not a lot of people in my close circle to kind of
have a soundboard and connect with and talk about it with.
Well, I have very close friends who I love, and sorry, there's got a mosquito flying around. I have very close friends who I love, and they support me. but they can't relate to what I'm doing, and they never have been.
Yeah.
And I've never tried to burden them with any of the issues that I've had, because I've just tried to figure them out myself. But that's been hard, not having sort of people to bounce off and say, oh, they're going through a similar thing. Like, it's that was tough growing up like that. But it's been for the best. I've grown a thick skin, and I've learned so much about myself, and I'm still here. And the world moves on. If you decide to shut down and go away for a few years, that's your choice. But people move on, and the world keeps moving. So, one of my best friends, he told me something. He goes, whenever life gives you a curveball, knock it out of the park.
I like that one.
Yeah.
How does that one apply to you? Tell me. Give me an example of something that you've taken on that analogy and given it a good swing.
Well, it's funny. So I would say that analogy, I could say I've hit a lot of curveballs, but at the time it didn't feel like I was hitting them. It felt like it was I was missing them, and it was hitting me. Someone else hit it, and it flew and hit me in the head. But I would say COVID was a massive curveball.
Events, like not being able to go out, DJ,
not being able to play events, just having a lot of self-reflection, and having a look back at myself and being like, have I been a good person? Like, what have I been doing with my life? Where's the purpose? Have I treated other people well? Have I allowed any of my experiences to impair other parts of my life, relationships? Am I humble? Because when I was a kid, I was making some good money. I was traveling, and I was just blowing, like as kids do. Some kids either spend, some kids either save, whatever. I was just spending money like water. I was kind of just living like honestly, no self-respect for myself at all. I gained a lot of weight, touring, drinking, a lot of alcohol, eating a lot of food in airports and stuff. It gave me really bad self-esteem. I was traveling all around the world, and I felt crap all the time. And COVID was horrible, because at the time it was horrible, but the best thing after, because I had to reflect on all that, I had to sit with all that emotion and be like, now what? Like, now what? Like, was all that for nothing? And me hitting that curveball was moving on from COVID, realizing I can upskill in other ways. Like, I use my music and content creation skills to work at a marketing place for a charity and get to see how like working for a charity works. And I'm thankful that I got that opportunity, and work with other people whose life is a bit different, like the 9-to-5 kind of job, and they really live a different way, and they think it differently. And I taught them things, and they taught me things, and it really made me appreciate that, like, one, there's always something that you can do. Like, if you're happy within yourself, it doesn't matter what you're doing. Like, you'll be able to find something else. And two, things eventually move on.
Absolutely.
It's not always doom and gloom if it feels like it. I think understanding that you're meant to be tested right now, like this is feeling doom and gloom because you're meant to be getting tested. If you can understand that, then I think it makes those hard times easier.
Yeah, I get you, man.
In the way that you go about it. Yeah,
I get you, man. It's like honestly, you're sharing, and I'm pondering now. I'm like, so there's part of me, kind of my mind's wandering off, and I'm thinking about other things as well. And I agree with you. Like, spending the time reflecting, I think, is probably one of the most important things that I've done over the last 2 years. The last 2 years have been a roller coaster, right? So separation, 2 kids, and then stroke a year later. It was very it was definitely challenging. It does, like, so what you're sharing, it's cool because it resonates with me, because I'm spending a bit of time reflecting on some of the curveballs that have been thrown at me. And you're right, it's not something that has to, it's not like you have to hit the curveball straight away. Sometimes it's coming in at a distance, so, and sometimes it's okay to slow down. So yeah, there's a lot of that where Just a lot of what you're saying now is really resonating with me, and I'm absolutely certain that it'll be resonating with the people that are going to be watching and listening to this as well. You know what I mean? Absolutely.
Yeah, I'm really glad, and I appreciate that. And it's just, I'm not really thinking what I'm saying. It's just speaking as it comes to me. But yeah, definitely things take time, and I think I used to be one of those people that would rush things and just want easy, want it to come easy. And I had a lot of remixes and a lot of music and a lot of success very quickly because of Facebook. So I think I started to believe that that's how you could get things very quickly, but it's not true. I kind of got myself out of a hole when I was a bit younger, 21, 22. I started going to the gym, wanted to lose weight, wanted to feel healthy. If I was going to be traveling the world, I wanted to at least feel healthy doing it. And to this day, I go to the gym 4 or 5 days a week, and I feel good, but it's taken a long time to feel that way. Like it's been a slow, consistent journey to finally be like, okay, like I've actually made some progress. You know what I mean? But so I think that's also a key thing, like something like a gym or real things like health, gym or relationships, real life things like that. All those great things take time. So why shouldn't that be the same for business, for anything else? Everyone wants just a quick thing. And with TikTok and stuff these days, like I'm on TikTok. I make videos every day. I try to make one video every day. Some of the sounds I love. Some of the sounds, they're okay. Some of the comments are great. Some of them get no comments. Some of the comments are negative, which I don't reply to anyway. But it's still consistent. So if I just keep doing that, then, I could wake up and have an idea, and that could be the idea that I love, and that could really take me somewhere. But the consistency is the most important thing. So I'm actually thankful for a platform like TikTok for kind of being that sort of platform where you can just test things out and have a bit of fun with it. So yeah, but I'm glad that you are thinking similar things with all the experiences you've gone through as well, because I really do believe you have to go through some tough times to get to the good times. Like I think if you ask any successful person in the world, like how they got there, they'll probably tell you like some sort of biopic story.
I get you, man. I get you. What I'm taking from this is patience is key, and consistency. And I'll ask you this before we wrap up. What would you do in a situation where there were people depending on you to provide and to protect? In what case then, would patience, I know consistency would still apply, but say the patience factor, what if you were fighting for dear life, or what if you were in some very dire circumstances? Would you still be patient, or, what would be your suggestion in that sort of circumstance?
Well, for example, like I mentioned, I worked in marketing, and I worked at a gym doing sales for a year because I had to, because I wasn't making enough money with my music and I didn't have an option. My parents, amazing people, they would not have let me do music or DJing as a career when I was around 18, 19. If it wasn't showing any sort of success. I was lucky enough to travel the world and to get a lot of really great success with some songs. So that put me in a position to make some money and to actually build a career. And then I got approached by an agency, which was amazing. But if that didn't happen, then it would have kind of been that conversation of, well, how are you going to live? And then that conversation happened during COVID, and I had to do other jobs. And I then could decide to come home after those jobs and do a bit of music. Do you know what I mean? So I guess my answer is you have to sometimes do other things, but if you really believe in something and yourself, you'll find time to do both. Yeah. You'll find time to do both. And then you'll be able to hopefully one day then quit the other job and go back to full time, because you've still been consistent. There's still something there. Do you know what I mean? Some people just give it all up, throw the towel in, which I understand, but also if you really loved it, you would try to your last breath. And that doesn't mean, not doing other jobs and just focusing that 100%. Sometimes you have to pull away from the 100% and put some into something else purely because you just need to survive. But
Yeah.
just because you're putting 50% into something at the time, that could still be 100%. That's possible, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. And I think, what I like about this conversation is that there's going to be a lot of people that are going to listen. Like this is definitely a clip for sure, right? And there's going to be a lot of people that are going to be hearing this and hearing what we've both shared. And they're going to be sitting here going, yeah, okay, you know what? You've got a really good point. And, I think, you're definitely proof for a lot of people and a testament that sometimes you have to make those sacrifices, but if you keep being consistent and you don't expect overnight success and you be patient, then you can achieve the goals that you want to achieve in life, right? I mean, look at you. You're traveling the world. You're going to the UK. You're playing multiple shows, global audience. You know what I mean? That's cool. That's really cool. And that's something to be proud of, definitely, Jess. And that's something that a lot of people are going to aspire towards. And sharing the story, I mean, how many people know about working at a gym and a marketing agency? Is this like the first time you've shared publicly, or?
I mean, people who follow me on socials would have seen me like in the gym uniform. Like I said with the persona thing, I could probably be better at it. I could probably have gotten maybe different places if I kept my music page music, because it's my name. I sometimes got a bit like, oh, I've got lots of friends on here, and I would share my life. So I was never afraid to share like what I was doing with my life. My dad has always taught me like you just got to do what you got to do. Like if it's an honest job, like there's nothing wrong with that. Do you know what I mean? There's a lot of people out there doing super dodgy stuff. Like how many times do you get a phone call every day and it's someone trying to scam you or just, so it's like,
yeah, an Indian guy from the ATO named John Smith. Yeah.
yeah, or I've been getting those Hotmail emails for years about me like receiving $1 billion from some Saudi Arabia prince or something like that.
Yeah, that's right.
But if there's someone doing that anyway, so
yeah,
I think it's not easy sometimes, and there is, I'm Jewish, so I believe in religion and I believe in God and stuff. I'm not religious, but I kind of believe that everyone has a path and a journey and a purpose. So just try to follow it. You know what I mean? If something feels right to you, do it. But you can't be stupid. You can't be like, oh, I want to be a DJ, so I'm just going to quit my job and I've got no money and just try anyway. Like if you've got $100,000 in the bank and you want to quit your job and try for 6 months, then that's awesome. So you got to be smart about it. You know what I mean? Like I only left the marketing job when I knew I was getting signed with Universal and I had enough money in the bank to go, okay, well, if it doesn't work, I'm okay for like 6 months. You know what I mean? So I wanted to quit way before it was getting a lot. Like I was coming home and making music and things were going really well on TikTok and SoundCloud. And I was like, oh, like this is like too much. I can't believe I want to keep doing more, but I can't because I got to go to work tomorrow.
You're burning creativity here, then you're burning creativity there.
I was burning out, honestly, and I get burnt out a lot. So if there's anyone in the comments or yourself that has any tips for burnout, I'd love to hear them, because it's one thing I put a lot of pressure on myself sometimes to just
delegate.
Keep going. Yeah,
delegate. If you want advice, I'll give you some advice now. Delegate. The more I like every single corner of everything that I do in business, I delegate. I had a staff member who had some discrepancies with their pay slips. And I went, yep, okay, we'll talk about it later this afternoon. And then that afternoon I was in my creative genius, and then he came over and he said, oh, can we have a chat about it? And I went, I sat it down. We've got Linda in the chat. She's our producer, making sure everything runs smoothly. I walked him over to Linda. I said, Linda, you know your pay slips, right? Can you look for any discrepancies? And if there are, let me know. And I delegated it to even a staff member who doesn't normally deal with those types of things, right? It's someone's pay, it's a financial matter, but I've delegated it to another staff member. And the more I delegate, the more I preserve my creative energy, which is what I mostly do too, man. Definitely. That'd be my advice to you.
Nice. I like that. I'll definitely keep that in mind if things are going well, and then other things, just life happens, and people need you, and you can maybe give it to someone else.
Said to me once, right, how much do you want to earn an hour? Write it down. Write it down on your hand. And once you work out how much you want to earn an hour, you put yourself in a situation where, let's just say it's $10,000 an hour, hypothetically. Like say, every year you want to make $1 million, and then you work it out. Good cash.
Thanks. I think I got him.
Yeah, good. Say you want $1 million a year. That's the goal. You want $1 million a year, right? You write down what that is per hour. So then what you do is you work out how many hours a week you want to work. And then from there, work backwards, $1 million, 20 hours a week, write down the number. How much is your hourly rate? And then you realize that when you're working, it's not actually, you have to do things in your business and in your creative field for you specifically that affect that number. So it's not actually putting in the work. So sometimes it's not always editing the videos to go on TikTok. Sometimes it's not always being the person who's being relied on to, create all the content. Sometimes it's not, you'd have booking managers and things like that, right? So why not replicate that across other areas of what you do and only focus on the things that affect that number? And so, for me, my number is something like $12,000 an hour, $12,000 an hour based on wanting to work 20 hours a week. That's a really nice number. Obviously, it's going to take time, but I realize now that when I do things in the business, it's like coming up with this podcast, the free podcast, to interview people. I looked at that and I said, okay, this is now a concept. An hour of my time is going to affect X amount of dollars into the business. If the free podcasting works really well, that'll affect $800,000 a year into the business as a result, if we were running at full capacity. So you can see how an hour, my creative genius and the time that I put into the business affects that number. You know what I'm saying? So that would be, to follow on with what we were talking about in terms of delegating and things like income and things like that. That's a great example of, why you should be focusing on what affects that number as opposed to the things that don't. Do you know what I mean? Delegate the rest.
For sure. Yeah, there's it's tough as well. Like, that's why a lot of artists, they have a massive team behind them, like managers, PR, booking agency. Currently, I just have a booking agency. I had a manager a few years ago. He was great. I think that's where we met, at the sound agent's office.
Correct.
But ultimately, I was very young, and I think there was a lot of lack of vision of what we wanted to do. And ultimately, and then COVID. So ultimately, just decided just to go back managing myself. But I can definitely see the benefits of having someone just go, right, do this, do that, and then you can just focus on the stuff that you're good at. Do you know what I mean? You can get good at other stuff, but we'll be getting good at that other stuff, create another business rather than focus on the current one that you're doing. Do you know what I mean? So
yeah, you look at other ways that you can complement. So you don't look at horizontals. Obviously, you can't take over someone else's DJ, or music producer portfolio because it's them as an individual. But you can look at verticals. So what does you being an artist tie into? Does that include an e-commerce store? Does that include this? Does that include that? What are some verticals that you can put yourself into to increase your bottom lines? And then, like I said, delegate. Don't even do it yourself. Partner with someone who's done it before and has done it well, and then leverage your audience to deliver on that. So, and that's really the name of the game. But we can talk more about that, another time. I'd be happy to have business conversations with you. I'm actually working with a live stream gamer from over in Canada at the moment who's got quite a substantial following as well. And that was the same conversation, right? It was like, I know nothing about business, and we're actually partnering together. So I can help him on the business side to help further capitalize on his audience. Because at the end of the day,
I'd
like,
love that.
yeah, man, happy to have a chat to you, any other time for sure. So yeah, very, very happy to chat, man, for sure. Definitely.
Sounds good.
Jesse, listen, man, we've gone on 40 minutes now. It's about 20 minutes longer than we anticipated.
That's standard with a chat with me for sure.
Good. That's good, man. Definitely due for a follow-up podcast then after this one. But, mate, look, enjoy Europe when you go over there next week.
Thank you.
When's your flight? Is it this weekend or?
Next Wednesday, the 14th.
Oof, man, you're leaving on Valentine's Day. Unreal. I love it. By the time you land, it'll be Valentine's Day too.
Yeah, so my girlfriend's not going to be happy about that, but I'll have to get a nice gift for when I come back.
You know what the best kind of gifts are? The ones that they weren't expecting. So if you organize a gift that, be like, oh my God, I'm so sorry, I forgot. And then just out of nowhere, she gets home and there's like, a box of Tiffany or something, who knows? But something really nice. And the surprises I find work really well.
For sure. It's all about the behavior, not the actual act of doing, not the actual gift. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So no, it's good, man. Look, thank you so much for coming on. Look, and for everyone that's listening, how can they get in touch? Where can they find you?
Yeah, so guys, just check me out on Spotify, SoundCloud, YouTube, Jesse Bloch. My name should be there. I don't know, JessebLach. Just watch out for me, guys. There's a lot of music coming out this year. I'm probably in my best kind of music production phase. I'm just really enjoying the stuff I'm making, and I hope you guys enjoy it too. And if I'm playing at a city near you, come down and tell me that you saw me on the LaunchDay podcast. So
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. I've really been good at promoting myself, but I just start being weird, and that usually helps. So there you go.
For sure, man. I love that. That's awesome. Well, Jess, thanks so much, man, for coming on. I genuinely really appreciated this chat.
Me too. It was good. My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
No worries, brother. All good. Thank you so much. And
Cheers,
for all
Dean.
of you that are listening at home or in the car or in the shower, some people listen in the shower, Jesse, by all means, we'll see you guys. Yeah, man, 100%. We'll see you guys on the next one, and we'll see you guys soon.